Chapter 553. Leap. How did you end up here? Chin Han looked at Bai Li Pang Pang, Chao Yuan and N Qin Yu, who had also removed their masks, and asked in confusion, "Didn't you leave Anta County a long time ago?" Lin Qi smiled. "We came back." Chin Han stared at them for a moment, and suddenly some memories floated into his mind. "I still have a few students and they are quite proud of me." "Yeah, they're impressive. They are the 5th reserve team. Or perhaps they are already the 5th special team now." At that moment, Chin Han seemed to return to that snowy night. That day it was the same boy who stood in the cold, dilapidated house, pointing a straight knife at his own nose, saying, "I am Lin Qiyi, the captain of the 5th Special Team Reserve. Now, I regret to inform you that Captain Li De Yong of Team 332 bravely died in battle against the Red Armored Ants." Chin Han seemed to recall something and shock appeared in his eyes. "You are really the 5th Special Team. You are the students of the Sword Saint." Lin Qiyi spoke somewhat helplessly. "You only believe our identity now?" Chin Han was speechless. When Lin Qiyi told him he was the captain of the 5th Special Team Reserve, he hadn't fully believed it because he had never heard any news about the 5th Special Team, so he remained skeptical. It was only at this moment that he truly realized. These people were indeed the 5th Special Team of the Great Xia. They weren't lying. "You guys didn't also come through the mist to get here, did you?" Chin Han asked. "That's right." Chin Han's expression was somewhat strange. At that time when he faced these people he had even questioned their identity and had drawn his knife against Lin Qiyi. Until they finally left, his relationship with them was not good. He never expected that just a few months later, they would traverse the mist and return here to protect the residents. The situation was somewhat awkward. Roar, roar, roar. The echoing roars came from the rapidly approaching mysterious tide, resonating like thunder in the sky. Lin Qiyi turned to look, his expression serious. He exchanged glances with the other team members and simultaneously lowered their heads to put on their masks. "Are you going to stop those mysterious creatures?" Chin Han suddenly spoke. "I want to go with you." Lin Qiyi turned to him, surprised. "You want to join us in stopping the beast tide?" Chin Han nodded firmly. "You are too weak." Lin Qiyi shook his head. According to the Night Watchman regulations, when the local station Night Watchman team faces an event beyond their capabilities, they can request support from a special team. The current situation in this city has exceeded your capabilities, and we are the only special team here. So you don't need to participate in this operation personally. Protecting this place is the responsibility of our 5th special team. Chin Han paused for a moment, frowning as he spoke. "But the regulations don't say that once a special team takes over an event, the local Night Watchman team cannot take action freely." Lin Qiyi extended his hand, pointing to the terrifying group of beasts in the distance, saying, "Among these mysterious creatures the weakest are at the pool realm. With your level, rushing in recklessly would get you torn to pieces in less than 2 seconds. I can provide healing from the back." "Why are you so determined to stop the beast tide?" Lin Qiyi asked, somewhat puzzled. "I'm not determined to stop the beast tide. I just want to fulfill the responsibilities of the station Night Watchman team." Chin Han said seriously, "This is Anta County, the base of my Night Watchman Team 332, a place I should protect. I cannot intervene in the battlefield of the Sword Saint Senior, but in the face of the beast tide I can play my part, even if it's very weak. Our Team 332 is the smallest team in the Great Xia with the fewest members and the lowest combat power. But so what? Being weak means I can always hide behind others, waiting for someone else to fix things." Chin Han extended his hand, solemnly pulling out his own emblem from his pocket, and slowly said, "Although Team 332 is at the bottom, we are, like you, Night Watchmen. No matter how, I hope I can contribute to this city." The other team members turned to look at Lin Qiyi. Lin Qiyi gazed at the emblem, then his eyes fell on Chin Han's resolute face. Compared to a few months ago, he had visibly matured a lot. After a moment of contemplation, Lin Qiyi's lips curled up slightly. "That's quite a speech, you've moved me. Qin Yu, tie him up." Chin Han. And Qin Yu flicked her fingers and invisible threads instantly wrapped around Chin Han, binding him tightly. Chin Han looked at Lin Qiyi in shock. "What are you doing? Even if you are a special team, you have no right to interfere with the actions of the local Night Watchman team." "We indeed have no right to interfere." Lin Qiyi spoke slowly, "But what does that have to do with me tying you up and throwing you back?" Chin Han was stunned for a moment. Are you unreasonable? Lin Qiyi chuckled. You can ask the Sword Saint Senior when our team has ever been reasonable? He slowly turned around and calmly said, Jialon, throw him back. Dressed in a deep blue robe, Jialon quickly walked up to the bound Chin Han, lifted him as if he were a chick, and then forcefully threw him toward the city behind. Chin Han's figure flew out awkwardly. You need to live and come back. A faint smile appeared on Lin Qiyi's face. Maybe after you return this time, you will meet that person. If you die, we won't have a good explanation for him. Once Chin Han's figure completely disappeared from view, Lin Qiyi turned back to face the overwhelming mysterious tide. He reached out into the void, summoning a formation that revealed a snow-white long knife in his hand, and beneath his feet, a patch of night color rapidly spread out. Beside him, Bai Li Pang Pang raised his hand, and a massive Taiji Bagua diagram unfolded beneath him. Chao Yuan slowly placed his hand on the hilt of his knife. Jialon carried a wooden bow on his back, holding a golden spear in his hand. And Qing Yu adjusted her glasses, a hint of gray light appearing in her eyes. Shin Qingzhu lit a cigarette for himself, exhaling a puff of smoke, while his other hand gently rubbed the black ring on his middle finger. Jiang Air floated in the air, gently raising his hands, causing the surrounding magnetic field to become chaotic. The fifth special team. Beneath the Sun Wukong mask, Lin Qiyi's eyes burst with soaring battle intent as he stared at the roaring beasts, shouting loudly, Jump! Whoosh! Under the gloomy sky, the 7 figures leaped from the top of the crumbling building, facing the roaring dark clouds above. Without hesitation, they jumped down. Chapter 554. The Great Weapon. Whoosh! Chin Han's figure shot out hundreds of meters, rapidly descending toward the city below. Just as he was about to hit the ground, the invisible threads on him automatically unraveled. He quickly twisted his body, using his foot to push off the nearby floor, stabilizing himself as he landed firmly on the ground. Seeing Lu Yu, who had been thrown out, he hurried over and asked in surprise, Senior Chin Han, why are you back again? Chin Han's expression stiffened. Realizing that his question was inappropriate, Lu Yu coughed twice and quickly changed his approach. Who are they? Chin Han sighed. They are the 5th special team. The 5th special team? Are they the students that Sword Saint mentioned? Lu Yu exclaimed in shock. Wasn't it said that they wouldn't come? But they still came. Lu Yu turned his head and saw the 7 figures leaping out of the city, a look of longing appearing in his eyes. The 5th special team. I wonder if I will ever have the chance to become a member of a special team in my lifetime. Suddenly Lu Yu thought of something. By the way, Senior Chin Han, what is the name of this 5th special team? Name. Yes, don't special teams usually have their own names? Chin Han was stunned for a moment and shook his head. I don't know. Woo. The howling wind swept past everyone's ears. Lin Qiyi turned his head, watching the figures around him jump down without hesitation, a smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. This feeling was familiar to Lin Qiyi. Last time they had also jumped down from the outer wall of the fasting place like this. The difference was that last time there were only 4 of them, while this time there were 7. The difference was that last time they faced freedom and the rising sun, while this time they faced a bottomless abyss. The difference was that last time they were escapees from a prison break, while this time, they were the 5th special team bearing promises and a mission to protect. Some things had changed, but some things had never changed, like trust and the boiling blood burning in their chest. Around their necks, silver medals strung together with ropes emitted a faint glow, dispelling the mist surrounding them. Beneath them the beasts roared. Lin Qiyi gazed at the rapidly approaching mysterious tide below, slowly raising his weapon, the Zhanbai, and swung it. Ignoring the space, the blade cut through effortlessly, severing the 3 mysterious beings at the forefront of the tide in one stroke, splattering blood onto a hound-like mysterious creature behind, staining it with a gruesome red. Roar. Just as it opened its mouth, sharp teeth gleaming ominously, ready to do something, a thick golden beam of light melted it away in midair. Dressed in a deep blue Han robe, Jialon held the Tianq spear, her face still somewhat pale, but her eyes were incredibly resolute. Jialon, don't use too much power, stand behind me, Lin Qiyi said upon seeing this scene. A flush suddenly appeared on Jialon's pale face. After hesitating for a moment, she obediently moved behind Lin Chia, and her previously lifeless demeanor seemed to regain vitality. Chao Yuan, you take the lead. Lin Chia turned to Chao Yuan beside him. Chao Yuan nodded, and the straight blade in his hand suddenly unsheathed. Clang! Black demonic flames surged into the sky, weaving into a cloak that enveloped Chao Yuan. His eyes instantly turned bloodthirsty, filled with murderous intent. He let out a low growl, stepping forward, and the straight blade in his hand unleashed a wave of black demonic energy, shattering the bodies of two mysterious beings. He swayed and charged to the front of the group, the demonic energy swirling as he carved a bloody path through the surging mysterious tide. Bailey Pang Pang reached into his pocket and pulled out 12 forbidden items that floated behind him. The jade-green armor spread across his body, draped in a tattered cloak, one hand grasping a ram's horn and the other holding a treasure vase, radiating brilliance. He followed closely behind the frenzied Chao Yuan, tearing open a gap. On the right side of the team, Lin Chia wielded the Zhanbai, the blade dancing wildly as he rapidly harvested the lives of the surrounding mysterious beings. With each step he took, a patch of lush grass would extend beneath him, flowers blooming on the mysterious beings, absorbing their spirit and vitality, replenishing Lin Chia himself. Jialan trailed at the back of the team, occasionally thrusting her Tianq spear, sweeping away large groups of mysterious beings with a single strike. In the center of the team, Shin Qingzhu held a cigarette, lightly rubbing it between his fingers, a spark of fire swirling around him, shooting out like a meteor shower, landing amidst the dense tide of beasts. Can you help me with something? And Qingyu said beside him. Shin Qingzhu raised an eyebrow. What do you need? And Qingyu silently took out a skull containing half a tongue, holding it in his left hand, then unfastened the MP3 from his waist with his right hand, placing the two together. Jiang Air tuned the frequency, and Qingyu said calmly. Beside him, the ghostly figure of Jiang Air appeared, and the volume of the MP3 was instantly turned to maximum, continuously emitting a buzzing sound as it adjusted the external frequency. Why does this sound so familiar? Shin Qingzhu asked curiously. Previous loot, the Bailey family's trump card, a high-risk forbidden item Wanga, and Qingyu briefly introduced the skull. In a moment this skull will start singing, and all creatures that hear this sound will be disintegrated into dust. I had Jiang Air maximize the MP3's volume and tune it to the same frequency as the skull, so this song will resonate throughout the battlefield. But the problem is, this thing is an indiscriminate attack, so... You want me to create a vacuum around us like before, right? Shin Qingzhu immediately understood his intention. And Qingyu nodded. No need for a complete vacuum, you just need to create a thin vacuum wall around the skull, shaping it like a horn, so that the sound can be amplified to the maximum without affecting us. Simple. Shin Qingzhu snapped his fingers and two thin vacuum walls instantly enveloped the skull. And Qingyu adjusted his glasses, channeling his mental energy into the skull while prying its mouth open. A faint crimson light burst forth from the skull's eye sockets, as if a pair of blood-red eyes were slowly opening, looking incredibly menacing. It opened its mouth, and within the bloodless cavity, half a living red tongue began to quiver. A faint melody started to echo in the air. Zzzz. Jiang Air mimicked the frequency of this sound, adjusting the MP3 to match it. Moments later, the originally faint melody amplified dozens of times, resonating throughout the mist. In front of this vacuum horn, a large number of mysterious bodies began to collapse, turning into clouds of dust that dissipated into the air. In just over a minute, more than 40 mysterious beings had perished under this enhanced Wanga, including 3 Wuliang realm mysterious beings, while another Klein realm mysterious being was caught off guard and had most of its body turned to sand. The unprecedented attack method created by Qingyu, Jiang Air, and Shin Qingzhu became a nightmare for the entire mysterious tide. Chapter 555, Scaring Away. Above the heavens, the body of the god of yellow sand, Set, was shattered by the sword energy, falling into the endless mist. Until death, his eyes remained filled with terror as they stared ahead, his face etched with disbelief. Cough, cough, cough. Zhou Ping lowered his head and began to cough violently. Bang, bang, bang. A large amount of blood mist erupted from his body, his flesh, skin, internal organs and bones disintegrating at an astonishing speed, transforming into laws and dispersing into the air. After this sword strike, 2/3 of his body had already vanished. Now Zhou Ping stood with one arm wielding the sword, his chest hollow and empty. The power of the laws used in this sword was too overwhelming. Even with just one strike, it was beyond what his body could endure, but the effect was evident. This sword had killed a deity. A smile appeared on Zhou Ping's blood-stained face. He had done it. He was the first person in human history to step into the realm of the Red Dust Sword Immortal. The first to leave laws on the path, the first to slay a deity. In these few short minutes he had created history multiple times, but he did not care much about that. What mattered to him was that he had not broken his promise. He had fulfilled that half-promise. Zhou Ping gripped the sword with one hand, his gaze slowly falling on the wind god beside him, his eyes narrowing slightly. Having witnessed Set's death firsthand, the wind god Xiao was still stained with his blood. He had not yet emerged from the shock of that earth-shattering sword strike. His consciousness lingered on the moment Set was slain. Even though the fact had unfolded before him, he still could not believe that this human had truly killed a deity. When he felt Zhou Ping's gaze again, sensing the unmasked killing intent, he snapped back to reality, the fear he had suppressed rising to the surface once more, and it was even stronger than before. He could really kill him. But thinking of the sun god's will, he had to force himself to calm down. This human's body could not withstand the sword's laws. He had only unleashed one strike and his body was already on the verge of collapse. In his current state he might not be able to unleash another strike. As long as he held on, this human would soon meet his end, and then he could take the city back. He looked into Zhou Ping's eyes and said calmly, "You have already unleashed one sword strike." Zhou Ping looked at him calmly. "So? Given your current condition, you cannot unleash another sword strike." Zhou Ping's eyes narrowed slightly, pure killing intent resurfacing within them. "Is that so?" Zhou Ping said flatly, "I am still alive, my sword is still here, my hand that wields the sword is still here. What makes you think I cannot strike again?" He raised his left hand and the sharp killing intent of the sword laws surged back into his sword from the void. The sound of the sword rang out again. The rolling waves of sword energy erupted around him, dispersing the surrounding mist, and the sword intent that filled the heavens and earth spread once more. This was Zhou Ping's second sword to slay a deity. Feeling the identical sword intent to the previous one, Xiao's face turned pale. He had not expected that after killing Set, this human still had the strength to unleash a second sword. He had witnessed the entire process of Set's beheading. Even at his peak he would not dare to take this sword head-on. Moreover, he had already fought Zhou Ping twice and was injured. If this sword were unleashed, he did not believe he could fare better than Set. This human's condition was indeed terrible, but as long as he could unleash another sword, the threat to him was infinitely great. He did not dare to face the second sword. After hesitating for a moment, a look of determination appeared in his eyes. Taking advantage of the fact that the sword's momentum had not yet been unleashed, he pulled at the void behind him with both hands. The gale tore open a corner of the void and he stepped in, causing his entire body to vanish within. The pressure of the wind god instantly disappeared without a trace. He had fled. Zhou Ping's sword halted in midair as he closed his eyes, carefully sensing his surroundings. Once he confirmed that the wind god had truly escaped, he slowly lowered his sword. This was not the first time Xiao had escaped from Zhou Ping's grasp. When Zhou Ping first arrived, he had forced Xiao back with a sword, saving the city from his hands. At that time he had also used this method to tear through space, instantly moving thousands of miles away. He would not be back in a short time. At the moment the sword was lowered, several more bursts of blood mist erupted from Zhou Ping's body, his form becoming increasingly blurred. His complexion was somewhat weak, but a look of relief appeared in his eyes. His strategy had worked. Zhou Ping's current state could indeed allow him to unleash another sword, but the power of the laws he could wield for this sword was probably only 1/3 of the previous sword, which meant he could indeed strike, but this second sword would not be able to slay a deity. If Xiao did not flee and chose to stay and continue fighting him, Zhou Ping's only option would be to risk the last bit of his body to exchange for Xiao's serious injury. Thus, from the very beginning, Zhou Ping had been building momentum for himself. Whether it was the oppressive sword intent, the laws filling the heavens and earth, or his words, all were preparations for this moment. He wanted them to feel that he stood here today to slay a deity. The sword he used to kill the god of yellow sand set could have been divided into 2 strikes, which would have minimized the burden on his body, but he still chose to draw upon so much power from the laws to complete that earth-shattering moment of slaying a deity. The goal was to make the surviving deity believe that he possessed the ability to slay a deity with a single sword. In the end, his initial move successfully scared the opponent away. Now there was still one last thing left to accomplish. Zhou Ping gripped his sword, gathering the remaining breath he had, like a black lightning bolt, racing toward the shattered city. Amidst the surging waves of mystery, several figures converged together like a sharp blade, cutting through the dense beast tide, forcefully blocking the fierce mysteries from crossing even a step beyond the Fengdu laws. Songs, gun flashes, knife shadows, forbidden objects. Their attacks formed a vast net, intertwining outside the shattered city, reaping a large number of mystery lives. Roar, roar, roar. Behind the mysteries, several powerful giant beasts sensed the presence of danger and began to growl deeply, each of their forbidden ruins opening up and spreading toward those figures. At the forefront of the tide, most of the mysteries were weak creatures that had not reached the sea realm. Lin Qier and the others could easily cut them down with their various means, but they had never let their guard down. They knew very well that the real challenge in this beast tide lay in the powerful mysteries hidden behind the tide. Chapter 556. Beast Tide Chaos. The mysteries in the fog are much more troublesome than those appearing within the Great Xia territory, and Lin Qier realized this when he encountered Belkrand. Not only are the mysteries in the Forbidden Ruins more powerful and bizarre than those within the territory, but these mysteries often possess high intelligence. The more powerful the mystery, the better it understands how to use its wits to survive in this fog. Of course, Belkrand has essentially focused all his skills on intelligence and mental manipulation, so his direct combat power is not very high. In fact, such peculiar beings are rare in the fog. For mysteries of the same realm, those in the fog tend to develop their own powerful combat abilities. After all, there are no night watchers in the fog, and these mysteries do not need to hide and protect themselves. They only need to continuously grow stronger and seize more territory from their kind. At the moment the roars echoed, the space around Lin Qier and the others began to violently stir. A massive beast claw suddenly reached out from the void, carrying a terrifying pressure, and heavily smashed down towards Qingyu and the others in the center of the formation. The first to react among the group was Jelon, who was at the back of the formation. She frowned, stepped forward, and thrust the golden spear in her hand towards the enormous beast claw. Boom! The golden beam of light collided with the beast claw, whipping up a fierce wind that sent her clothes fluttering. The beast claw was pierced by Feng, creating a bloody hole, and an angry roar echoed from the void. Then a gigantic snow-white bear appeared, flying backward. And Qingyu's eyes quickly scanned its form, analyzing the aura surrounding it. This was a mystery of the Klein realm. At the same time, Jelon was also knocked back by the powerful recoil of the claw, becoming disconnected from the formation and falling into the surging tide of mysteries. Lin Qie's mental perception witnessed the entire process. He quickly turned around, using Hunbai in his hand to slice through several mysteries near Jelon, then pressed his hand in the air, summoning a brilliant magic circle. "Be careful, I'll go rescue Jelon," he instructed. Although Jelon had Immortal protecting her and wouldn't be injured, the previous forced application of Immortal against the power of the laws had already damaged her soul. If he carelessly left her in this raging tide of beasts, it could lead to disaster. A massive flame-vein earth dragon was summoned, its wings flapping as it carried Lin Qie towards the beast tide. The speed of Jindian was too fast. In an environment filled with enemies, it lost its maneuverability. Although Hongyan's flying speed was slower, it was very agile, able to weave freely through the tide of beasts. Carried by Hongyan, Lin Qie passed through the encirclement of 3 mysteries, opening her mouth as a red glow gathered in front of her. Boom! She unleashed a scorching breath of fire, piercing through the dense tide of beasts and melting a large number of weaker mysteries, clearing a narrow path in a short time. Their figures gradually disappeared into the tide of beasts. And Qingyu held Elegy, and the MP3, his eyes, glowing with a gray light beneath the lenses, swiftly scanned every mystery that appeared before them, analyzing them on the spot. The red pangolin hidden in the beast tide at 11 o'clock is a Wuliang realm mystery. He suddenly spoke, his gaze sweeping to the left front of the group. Bailey Pongpong's pupils constricted sharply. Without thinking, he flicked his fingers and a round shield floating behind him rapidly enlarged, a robust gray-blue light bursting forth, enveloping everyone in front of him. Clang! Almost simultaneously, a red lightning bolt struck the round shield, the terrifying recoil nearly sending Bailey Pangpang flying, and the mighty gray-blue light was instantly dispersed by more than half. Immediately after, a second impact followed. Clang! Bailey Pangpang let out a muffled groan, his face turning pale. The round shield in front of him was knocked away by the pangolin, its light dimming significantly. The red pangolin paused for a moment before darting out again like a bolt of lightning. And Qingyu frowned and quickly adjusted the direction of the MP3 in his hand, aiming at the pangolin. However, the opponent's speed was simply too fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had dashed out of the sound range of the vacuum horn, turning sharply in the air and charging towards the group from the right. Madman Chao Yuan let out a low growl, brandishing his black blade of malevolent energy, and charged at the red pangolin. Don't! And Qingyu had just opened his mouth to warn when the two figures, one black and one red, collided violently. A terrifying storm erupted from the point of impact, the red lightning figure hesitating for a moment before being sent flying backward, a deep knife mark already etched into its red scales. Madman Chao Yuan was also knocked back like a kite with a broken string, drifting away into the distance. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through in Qingyu's mind. He immediately spoke to the others. Chase! Bring Chao Yuan back. Bailey Pangpang, Shin Qingzhu, and Qingyu and Jiang Er simultaneously changed direction, cutting a bloody path through the tide as they pursued the direction where Chao Yuan had flown. In the entire team apart from Lin Chia, the one everyone trusted the most was in Qingyu. He was the only one in the team who could outsmart Lin Chia, and every command he issued was undoubtedly based on sound reasoning. Every choice he made was the optimal solution. They believed in Qinyu's judgment. When Lin Chia was absent, he was undoubtedly the commander of this small team. Even when Lin Chia was present, he was still the commander. In this situation, no matter what Qinyu said, they would follow. The reason Qinyu made this choice was to prevent the group from scattering in the tide of beasts. Their average realm was at the sea level. As long as they acted together, it would be fine. However, if someone fell behind, even if they weren't targeted by higher realm mysteries, they would eventually exhaust their mental energy and die from fatigue. The four figures weaved through the tide of beasts, with Qingyu using elegy and the MP3 to easily carve out a path. At that moment, a snow-white bear paw reached out from the void again. This was the same Klein realm white bear that had just knocked Jialan away. As soon as the bear paw appeared, Qingyu's pupils constricted sharply. He quickly sidestepped half a step, but it was still a moment too late. The bear paw struck his hand, shattering his right palm along with the MP3. The external sound of elegy abruptly stopped. His entire palm was crushed, and Qingyu's brow furrowed in pain, but he quickly stowed away the skull in his left hand, then froze the blood spraying from his right wrist with a touch of ice. Chapter 557. Fierce Battle. Although the MP3 was shattered, the elegy itself remained intact, which was a stroke of luck for Qingyu. As for the broken hand, he could just grow another one. After putting away the elegy, Qingyu shattered the ice on his right wrist. At this moment, the spurting blood had already stopped, and a large number of cells were rapidly regenerating, slowly revealing the outline of a new hand from his wrist. Even with his rapid regeneration, regrowing a hand was a significant undertaking for him, and he couldn't fully recover in a short time. Jiang Er, witnessing this scene, furrowed her brow. She turned to look at the void crack from which a bear paw had emerged. The white bear, having landed a hit, withdrew its massive paw back into the void. Just then, a white shadow darted out like lightning, crashing into its hidden body. The white bear's body shook and it stepped out from the concealed void crack. Its enormous paws quickly slapped its own face, and each time they struck, a dull thud echoed. Its power was terrifying, and after several slaps, its entire head became a bloody mess. Roar! Endless rage and frustration filled its mind, and under the intense emotional turmoil, the ghostly Jiang air was directly blasted out of its body. It raised its bloodied head and roared ferociously. Immediately after, its body vanished back into the void, reappearing right in front of the ghostly Jiang air. Its massive paw came crashing down like a mountain but lightly brushed past Jiang air's body, causing no harm whatsoever. Jiang air herself was a magnetic field, rendering the white bear's physical attacks completely ineffective against her. The white bear's fury intensified. It's going to go berserk, we need to get out of here. And Qingyu clearly saw the entire process. Carrying the black coffin on his back, along with Bai Li Pangpang and Shen Qingzhu, he charged full speed toward Chao Yuan's direction. The white bear was not lacking in intelligence. Realizing it couldn't harm the girl in the white dress, it roared in frustration, ignoring the ghostly Jiang air's provocation, and directly turned its target toward Qingyu and the others. Although Qingyu, Bai Li Pangpang, Shen Qingzhu, and Jiang air had considerable combat strength, facing a Klein realm mysterious creature in the midst of a beast tide was dangerous. Even if they survived the white bear's attack, other mysterious beings would tear them to shreds while they were injured. Bai Li Pangpang and Shen Qingzhu teamed up to carve a bloody path through the beast tide. At the same time, the crazed Chao Yuan sensed their approach, his murderous aura blazing as he cut a bloody path, rapidly closing in on them. Just then, the aura of a second Klein realm mysterious being erupted between the two groups. A towering black giant standing 3 meters tall, leaped powerfully from the rear of the beast tide, crashing down with the precision of a meteor right in front of Bai Li Pangpang and the others. Its massive feet crushed several weaker mysterious beings into pulp. Boom! On the chest of this black giant was a large circular hole. It held a thick pitch-black chain in each hand, and at the end of the chains were 2 enormous severed giant heads. The 2 giant heads glared with bloodshot eyes, their eerie gaze locking onto Bai Li Pangpang and the others. Damn it, why are there so many Klein realm monsters in this fog? Bai Li Pangpang exclaimed upon seeing the bizarre black giant. He turned to look behind him and saw the white giant bear, capable of traversing the void, rapidly approaching. The fog has become a forbidden zone for life, not only because of the toxic mist itself but also due to the terrifying creatures that inhabit it, Shen Qingzhu said with a grim expression. I've heard from the whispers that the fog is dangerous, but I never expected it to be this perilous. What should we do now, Qingyu? And Qingyu furrowed his brow. After a moment he said, let's try to bypass this giant. If that doesn't work, we'll have to charge through. Song. A golden beam of light swept through the rolling beast tide, claiming the lives of 7 or 8 mysterious beings. Immediately after, a tide of strange creatures surged forward to fill the gap. The pale-faced Jialon stood amidst the beasts, wielding her golden spear. Her mental energy was no longer sufficient to activate the killing beam of Tiankei, so she had to rely on the most primitive spear techniques to fight the beasts up close, the splattered mysterious blood gradually staining her deep blue robe red. Her hand gripping the spear trembled slightly, her movements growing increasingly sluggish. More and more mysterious beings were biting at her, and although they couldn't penetrate her body, they were nearly overwhelming her in the beast tide. Strange forbidden ruins pressed down on her, weakening her combat power and draining her stamina. She bit her lip tightly. Even as her body grew heavier, her blood-stained face remained resolute. Boom! A searing dragon breath carved a path through the herd of beasts, and a figure riding a red dragon approached like a shooting star. Jialon recognized the figure and shuddered slightly. Lin Chia, dressed in black, wielded Zhanbai in his right hand, swinging it continuously. The blade's light filled every corner within 1,000 meters around him, shattering the mysterious beings that tried to rush at him. Meanwhile, the flower buds beneath his feet rapidly absorbed the mental and life energy from the mysterious corpses, replenishing his own. In his left hand he held a silver magic cube which began to spin rapidly. As Jialon felt herself being engulfed by the beast tide, she experienced a dizzying sensation, as if the surrounding space were rotating like a magic cube. The mysterious beings clinging to her fell off one after another, and finally her body felt light as she dropped from the air. She landed safely in Lin Chia's arms. Lin Chia waved to retrieve the Chaos Cube back to the psychiatric hospital of the gods. holding Jelon in his arms. The flame pulse earth dragon beneath them flapped its wings vigorously, and the three of them rapidly ascended into the sky. Lin Chia looked down at the extremely weak Jelon and asked, "Are you okay?" Jelon lay in Lin Chia's embrace, staring blankly into his eyes, her previously pale cheeks suddenly flushed. I'm fine." She slightly turned her head away, unable to meet Lin Chia's gaze, her heart racing. At that moment only one thought remained in her mind. This life was worth it. Seeing that Jelon was exhausted but unharmed, Lin Chia nodded and turned to dive toward Bai Li Pang Pang and the others. Just then, amidst the vast beast tide, the aura of a third Klein realm mysterious being surged into the sky. Lin Chia's expression instantly turned grave. Chapter 558, Nix's Farewell. Lin Chia turned back and saw a giant gray sparrow rushing out from the rolling mist, its mouth open and a clear chirp echoed in the sky. Chirp. The moment the chirp reached Lin Chia's ears, the sparrow's form flew before him like a ghost, propelled by the sound waves. Its speed was too fast, so fast that Lin Chia barely caught a glimpse of its appearance. Even his mental perception couldn't keep up with its speed. The gray sparrow's wings, over 2 meters long, flapped heavily against Lin Chia's chest. In a critical moment, a deep blue silhouette blocked Lin Chia's path. Boom. A dull sound reverberated in the sky, and the flying flame pulse earth dragon seemed to be struck by a meteor, plummeting straight down. In an instant, one dragon and 2 people crashed back into the surging tide of beasts. Cough, cough, cough. Lin Chia awkwardly stood up from the deep pit, coughing violently. Beside him, Jelon sat weakly on the ground, gasping for breath. The force of that gray sparrow's strike was terrifying. Even though Jelon had shielded him, the transmitted power nearly caused Lin Chia to spit blood. If Jelon hadn't blocked that blow, Lin Chia would likely be severely injured and unable to stand. Jelon. Lin Chia opened his mouth, about to say something, when the chirp sounded in his ears again. This time, without a second thought, Lin Chia used all his strength to leap forward. Just as his feet left the ground, the gray shadow crashed into the spot where he had been standing, creating a terrifying deep pit. The rolling shockwave sent Lin Chia flying, and he tumbled several times before barely stopping. He turned to look at the giant shadow slowly rising from the dust, his face extremely grim. If he wasn't mistaken, this sparrow could appear at any location where its chirp was heard, and this wasn't a spatial flicker but pure speed. Within its own sound, it possessed a terrifying speed akin to teleportation. This was far more terrifying than mere spatial flickering because once its speed reached a certain level, the kinetic energy generated was incredibly frightening. Just now, when it struck him and Jelon with its wing, it relied on the kinetic energy produced by its rapid movement. If the artifact that could manipulate kinetic energy, the Primal Abyss, were still around, Lin Chia might have had a fighting chance. But now, he had no means to deal with this gray sparrow. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions echoed from afar, and the roar of a white bear was deafening. In Lin Chia's mental perception, Bai Li Pang Pang, Crazy Mo Chaoyuan, and Xin Qingzhu were being firmly suppressed by the black giant, who was also at the Klein realm. Each swing of the giant's 2 head chains unleashed terrifying thunder, turning the area within 100 meters into a thunderous battlefield. The white bear had crossed through the void and was frantically chasing after Qingyu, who was carrying the black coffin. The latter, relying on his analysis of the surrounding environment and his nearly immortal regeneration ability, was struggling to weave through the tide of beasts, dodging the giant claws of the white bear. However, the black coffin he carried on his back was already shattered in several places, and the ice containing Jiang Er's corpse had developed a menacing crack as if it would soon shatter. The situation was dire. Lin Chia and the others were all at the Sea Realm. Even if they teamed up, they could only contend with one Klein Realm enemy, but victory was not guaranteed. Moreover, 3 mysterious Klein Realm beings had appeared from the mist, and there were numerous mysteries lurking around. Their predicament was extremely dangerous. Seeing this scene, Lin Chia gritted his teeth and immediately immersed his consciousness into the mental hospital in his mind. Now he could only hope that after bearing the soul of a deity he could turn the tide. However, with his current realm, even if he bore the soul of a deity, he could only barely elevate to the Klein realm. Facing 3 Klein realm mysteries, his chances of winning were still very low, but apart from that he had no other options. At that moment, a thought rejected Lin Chia's request to bear the soul. Lin Chia stood frozen in place. In the mental hospital of the gods, a woman draped in a starry gown stood in the courtyard, gazing up at the sky. After a long while, she slowly turned her head to look at Merlin beside her. Now there shouldn't be any other variables, right? Merlin sighed deeply. None. Lin Chia, dressed in a white coat, appeared out of nowhere in the courtyard. He turned to look at Nyx, puzzled, and asked, "Mother, what happened? Why did you bring me back?" Nyx gazed into Lin Chia's eyes, a smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. She softly said, "Because I must say goodbye to you, my child." Lin Chia was taken aback. "Goodbye? My time here is almost up." Nyx looked up at the sky above her. "I can barely hold on any longer. The laws here are rejecting my existence. I must leave." Lin Chia thought of something and looked up at Nyx's head. There, a phantom progress bar appeared in Lin Chia's vision. Nyx's treatment progress, 97%. "Mother, can you see it?" Lin Chia asked in surprise. "From the moment it reached 95%, I could see its existence." Nyx smiled slightly. "In fact, I can even see your situation outside through here." At that moment, I suddenly realized that the countdown for my stay here had already begun. "But it hasn't reached 100% yet," Lin Chia couldn't help but say. Only when the treatment progress reached 100% did the patient need to leave the mental hospital and undergo the final ability extraction. Although Nyx's progress bar was nearly full, it was still some distance from 100%. Nyx smiled helplessly. Nyx's treatment progress, 98%. Nyx's treatment progress, 99%. The progress bar moved forward 2 slots rapidly under Lin Chia's gaze. Lin Chia seemed to understand something and looked down at Nyx. "Mother, have you been suppressing your treatment progress all along?" Nyx nodded. "To be precise, I've been suppressing my soul's self-repair process. Since half a year ago, I haven't taken any medicine. I thought that by doing so I could continue to stay here. But during these 6 months, it still grew slowly, and even when I used all my strength, I couldn't suppress the soul's self-repair. Now my time here has reached its limit." Chapter 559. Discharge from Hospital. "Mother, why didn't you tell me?" Lin Chia asked in confusion. "If you don't want to leave, I can find a way to make you stay. Since this hospital can accommodate you, perhaps it can also allow you to remain here." Nyx smiled and shook her head. "It won't let me stay, I can feel that very clearly. This hospital has its own thoughts. It is alive. It's alive." But you haven't grown to the point where you can converse with it yet," Nyx replied. Lin Chia furrowed his brows and looked down at the ground beneath his feet, surprise flickering in his eyes. All along, he had thought of this hospital as merely an object in his mind, devoid of its own thoughts beyond the rules set by others. But Nyx's words completely overturned his understanding. However, if viewed from this perspective, it seemed he could indeed uncover some clues. In this hospital, he couldn't be harmed and possessed absolute suppression, as if an unseen force was aiding him. The white coat he wore could absorb blood, which didn't seem like a lifeless object. Even though the entire hospital lacked seeds, the backyard continuously produced crops. Every time he needed to sign a contract with the mysterious, a document containing all the other parties' information could be generated at any moment. These factors flashed through Lin Chia's mind, and he looked at the ground beneath him, ultimately believing in the fact that it was a living entity. Nyx looked up at the sky and slowly spoke. "Moreover, there are some matters outside waiting for me to handle. There are some old debts that I need to settle personally. My children cannot die in vain." Lin Chia raised his head to meet Nyx's gaze, which was filled with murderous intent, momentarily stunned in place. He had never seen Nyx like this. In his impression, Nyx had always been a gentle and elegant mother figure. Throughout their time together, she had never shown even a hint of negative emotion. All her maternal love was given to Lin Chia, while her hatred had been buried deep within her heart. Now it was time for reckoning. "What about your body?" Lin Chia asked. The patients in this hospital were all souls. When they walked out of their rooms, both their souls and divine forms were incomplete. Now, after treatment, Nyx's soul was nearing completeness, but she still lacked a body. Without a body, she was incomplete. Reconstructing a divine body requires the corresponding laws to nourish it. I need to return to the divine realm that belongs to this law to regain my body, so I must leave here. You want to return to Olympus in a soul state? Lin Chia frowned. But Lin Chia didn't finish his sentence. Long before he was in Songnon, he had read a lot about Nyx's myths and legends. Combined with his current understanding of the various divine realms shrouded in mist, he vaguely suspected that the deaths of Nyx's children might be related to those Greek deities. If that were the case, wouldn't Nyx returning to Greece be walking into a trap? Nyx noticed the worry in Lin Chia's eyes and warmth filled her heart. She smiled gently and embraced him. Don't worry, my child. Mother is stronger than you think. Once I've dealt with everything, I will come back to find you. I hope that when the time comes, we can meet again outside this hospital. Lin Chia felt the warmth radiating from Nyx, paused for a moment and nodded heavily. It will definitely be possible, Mother. Nyx withdrew her hands and looked up at the void above her head, her gentle eyes gradually calming. Before I go, let me clear these obstacles for you. She extended her hand and gently tore through the void in front of her. In the next moment, the progress bar above Nyx's head began to pulse again. A series of prompts appeared before Lin Chia. Nyx's treatment progress. 100%. Night Goddess Nyx's treatment is complete. Please leave the hospital immediately. Reward acquisition conditions met. Beginning random selection of Nyx's divine abilities. Sizzle. The void in front of Nyx was torn open, revealing a black portal. She donned a gown of starry fabric and stepped into it. Her figure completely vanished from the psychiatric hospital of the gods. Boom. A giant head crackling with thunder crashed heavily onto the ground, sending sparks flying and striking the jade-green armored Bai Li Pang Pang, causing several gaping wounds to appear in the armor. Bai Li Pang Pang let out a muffled groan, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, like a kite with a broken string flying backward. Shin Qingzhu snapped her fingers and countless high-pressure air walls transformed into sharp blades, slashing at the black giant, but they were all shattered by the head's chain in the giant's hand, the deafening sound echoing, making everyone's ears buzz. The battered and bruised madman Chao Yuan clumsily got up from the ground, roaring as his aura flared up several times, swinging his blade. The black giant turned around and a head chain shattered the aura blade, just as madman Chao Yuan was about to charge again. In the next moment he was struck by a hidden, mysterious entity of the limitless realm from behind, sending him flying in another direction. Bang bang bang. Not far away, the white bear darted through the void, striking down with one palm after another, shattering the ground. And Qingyu, carrying a black coffin and dodging the attacks, gritted his teeth, his body covered in blood and wounds from the embedded debris. The ground shook violently under the impact of the white bear and his speed was slowing down. Jiang Air continuously possessed the other mysterious entities around, trying to block the white bear, but they were all smashed into meat patties with a single blow, the pile of corpses growing larger, and her face turned pale from the exhaustion of her mental energy. Chia. Jialan looked at Lin Chia, who stood dazed in place, while the gray sparrow opposite flapped its wings again, shouting as it rushed forward, wrapping him in its embrace, turning its back to the oncoming gray sparrow. Sizzle. Just as the gray sparrow flapped its wings, a pitch-black portal suddenly opened in front of Lin Chia. The sparrow's cry echoed beneath the sky as its figure streaked through the air at an astonishing speed, crashing into Jialan's body, but ultimately collided head-on with the black door. The sky above darkened rapidly. A pure darkness, like ink submerged in water, spread across the heavens. Beneath the pitch-black night, a woman draped in a starry gown stepped out of the black portal, one hand gripping the gray sparrow's neck, her expression emotionless. Her eyes seemed to contain endless stars. Chapter 560. The Fierce Nyxis. A chilling aura of terror spread across the battlefield. All the mysteries turned their heads simultaneously, gazing in horror at the direction where the darkness emerged. Under the overwhelming and mysterious pressure, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Even the Klein Realm White Bear and the giant felt a deep-seated fear rising from within. The moment the ultimate darkness appeared, all light was devoured, and it seemed as if only the beautiful woman in the black dress remained in the world. She stepped on starlight, calmly walking out from the pitch-black portal. The fragments of light danced on her black skirt, echoing the twinkling stars reflected in the sky. Every gesture she made exuded an air of elegance. Her face was cold and noble, resembling a noblewoman strolling in her royal garden. Just a fleeting glance at the numerous mysteries was enough to impose an unprecedented sense of oppression, pinning them all to the ground. They crawled in terror. Is that another god? Shen Qingzhu felt the terrifying divine might emanating from the beautiful woman, and her pupils suddenly constricted. It must be a god, and Qingyu squinted her eyes, observing the woman's ethereal form. But it seems she has no physical body, just a god in a spiritual state? How did she walk out of 7-Night's body? And Qingyu focused on the gray sparrow she held, and after a moment she slowly spoke. Perhaps we can make a bold assumption. How bold? For example, she is on our side? Nix's gaze calmly swept across the battlefield, finally landing on the small gray sparrow in her hand. A streak of darkness flowed down Nix's palm, piercing into the gray sparrow's body. The gray sparrow let out a piercing scream in Nix's grasp, its eyes filled with terror and despair. In that moment, it was no longer a Klein realm mystery traversing the fog but a truly weak little sparrow at the mercy of others. Nix's eyes quietly regarded it, her voice cold as she spoke. Is it you who wishes to harm my child? At the instant those words were spoken, Bai Li Pangpang and the others stood frozen in place. Bai Li Pangpang. Sigma. And Qingyu. Sigma. Degree winky face. Shen Qingzhu. Jialan. And Qingyu thought her assumption was bold enough, but upon hearing that statement she felt, perhaps she had been a bit conservative. This world was too insane. In her hands the gray sparrow's cries grew increasingly shrill and painful, as if its entire soul was being crushed inch by Nix, an unprecedented agony enveloping its heart. Its breath grew weaker. Nix did not directly strangle it to death but instead gripped its throat, turned around and walked in front of Lin Chia. Child, draw your sword. A gentle smile appeared on her face. Lin Chia was taken aback, then raised the Zhanbai horizontally across his chest. Nix flicked her finger, and the gray sparrow's neck collided directly with the blade of Zhanbai, severing it in two. Blood sprayed forth and it completely lost its life. A warm current flowed from the blade into Lin Chia's body. He looked up in shock at the smiling Nix, momentarily at a loss for words. Did she know that this hospital had the effect of binding souls? But upon reflection it wasn't surprising. After reaching 95% treatment progress, Nix could even see the data above her head and observe the external scenery through the hospital. Knowing the secrets of the basement was quite normal. Mother will be leaving soon. Before that, Mother will give you 3 small gifts. Nix looked into Lin Chia's eyes and smiled slightly. She turned around, facing the horde of beasts that lay prostrate on the ground. The darkness in her eyes surged, and an incredibly terrifying aura of darkness spread across the world. Her skirt extended infinitely across the ground, as if pouring out an endless vat of ink. In an instant the feet of the more than 300 mysteries were completely shrouded in darkness. Extreme fear enveloped the hearts of all the mysteries. Among them, those who were relatively strong had already sensed the crisis of death. They disregarded everything and stood up from the darkness, using all means to rush toward the light beyond the darkness. The white bear let out a low growl, its form flickering as it vanished into the void. The black giant stomped heavily on the ground, launching itself like a cannonball. The red pangolin burrowed into the earth, rapidly moving deeper into the ground. What they failed to notice was that they had already been tainted by a patch of darkness. Nix calmly observed this scene, her fingers lightly raised, and all the mysteries on the dark skirt were lifted into the air by an invisible hand. The white bear, which had already slipped into the void, was forcibly jolted back. The black giant's leaping form suddenly halted, rolling back, and the red pangolin was also directly pulled back into the darkness, suspended in the air like cured meat. 300 mysteries hung beneath the night sky. Seeing this surreal scene, the other members of the team were left in shock, mouths agape. Bai Li Pangpang suddenly slapped himself across the face, blinking hard, staring at the more than 300 cured meats above him, gasping in disbelief. This was simply too terrifying. To so easily hang such a terrifying horde of beasts in the air like pork? 7 Night's mother was truly formidable. Strange. and Qingyu spoke up in confusion. What is it? If she is indeed a god, then killing these mysteries should be a piece of cake. But why is she hanging them in the air? Bai Li Pangpang pondered for a moment. To look cool? He had to admit this scene was indeed impressive. And Qingyu shook her head. She currently has no physical body. She is in a purely spiritual state. This means that every time she uses her power, she is consuming her own soul. The consumption of the soul is not something that can be easily recovered, especially since she is a god. Once her soul is damaged, it would take a very long time to recover. Killing these mysteries is merely a snap of her fingers, and it wouldn't consume much of her energy, but creating such a grand spectacle would inevitably cause some damage to her soul. It seems she doesn't need to do this. At that moment, Shen Qingzhu, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. It seems she wants Lin Chia to personally kill these mysteries. Why? Bai Li Pangpang's why was just about to be voiced when he immediately shut his mouth. This matter clearly involved Lin Chia's secret. As long as Lin Chia did not take the initiative to speak, they would not pry into it. Everyone tacitly agreed not to discuss the topic further. Chapter 561. The Gift of Nixus. Nix's gaze fell upon the 300 mysteries, suspended in the air, her cold face showing no expression. Her eyes narrowed slightly and the darkness surrounding her seemed to boil. Those mysteries hanging in the sky were like pigs caught by iron chains around their necks, lining up and swiftly flying toward Lin Chia. Under this night they could not resist. They were extremely weak. The night had already invaded their bodies, eroding their insides, leaving them on the brink of death. In the dead silence, they resembled pork hanging on a slaughter line, being sent one by one to Lin Chia. Dark Night Slaughterhouse. Lin Chia held his knife horizontally, and one after another the mysteries crashed into the blade cleanly and swiftly. Their speed was too fast. It was so fast that Lin Chia couldn't even see what type of mystery had died under his knife. The opponent's soul had already transformed into a warm current, flowing into the psychiatric hospital. In the underground of the God's psychiatric hospital, the number of mysteries imprisoned in cages was increasing at an astonishing rate. Gradually Lin Chia began to feel numb. He simply held the knife horizontally, closed his eyes and ignored everything. Under Nix's control, this wave of beasts had all died at Lin Chia's hands within just 1 minute. When he opened his eyes again, a towering mountain of corpses had piled up in front of him. Beside him, and Qingyu silently swallowed. The beast tide had completely vanished under the cover of night. In the future, Mother won't be able to protect you by your side, so I thought to find you some helpers, Nix said as she walked in front of him, smiling. Do you like this gift? Lin Chia nodded repeatedly. I like it. 300 mysteries, if done at a normal task speed, would take decades to gather. Nix's intervention had nearly filled Lin Chia's quota of caretakers. Of course, it was impossible to fill it completely, as Lin Chia had sensed that the number of cages in the underground of the God's psychiatric hospital was nearly infinite. Even if a large portion of the 300 mysteries were useless, they could still yield over 100 caretakers. Even if Lin Chia had to sign contracts with each one, it would take several days. Now Lin Chia's concern was whether the hospital could accommodate so many people. Upon hearing this response, a smile appeared on Nix's face. She reached out and grasped the air, and a black knitted coat appeared in her hand. She draped the coat over Lin Chia, stepped back 2 paces, and examined him closely, satisfaction evident in her eyes. The coat fit perfectly. After putting it on, Lin Chia's demeanor became much more composed and dignified. Coupled with his already handsome face, he looked like a character straight out of a comic. The thread used to weave this coat is my divine power, and the needle used to knit it is the law of night, Nix said as she approached Lin Chia. Wearing it is like donning my night. It can help you withstand several attacks from the laws. When I'm not around, it will protect you well. Lin Chia gently rubbed the surface of the coat. The threads were fine and orderly. Although the color was pitch black, it felt slightly warm to the touch and was very comfortable. Such a coat made from this material was unique even if one searched the entire earth. Lin Chia looked into Nix's eyes, a warm current flowing through his heart. He opened his mouth and sincerely said, "Thank you, Mother. Next there is one last gift remaining." She glanced around, waved her hand gently, and a shroud of night enveloped the surroundings, isolating everyone's sight from them. Mother, what are you? Lin Chia asked, somewhat puzzled. This next gift is best kept a secret from others. Nix shook her head. If I'm not mistaken, you still have one chance to draw my ability. Lin Chia was taken aback, then nodded. After reaching 100% treatment progress, there was one last chance to draw an ability. Just before Nix's discharge, she had already met the conditions for drawing, but Lin Chia had temporarily set this matter aside due to too many external issues. Now let's draw once. Nix extended her hand, placing it on Lin Chia's palm, and slowly closed her eyes. Lin Chia responded with an sinking his consciousness into the psychiatric hospital in his mind. He wore a white coat, standing in the center of the courtyard. Nearby, in the corridor, Li Yifei and several caretakers were gathered, quietly peering in. They had all witnessed the scene of Nix leaving the hospital. It was an incredibly magical event for them, as she was the first patient to leave here. Thus they all stayed behind to see what would happen next. In the empty courtyard, only Lin Chia and Merlin stood there. Today Merlin had changed into a stylish deep blue mage robe, holding a staff, smiling as he looked at Lin Chia, seemingly lost in thought. Merlin, don't forget our agreement. Nix's voice echoed from the sky. Merlin sighed. I know I'm right here, aren't I? Lin Chia turned his head in confusion. Lord Merlin, what are you going to do? Merlin waved his hand. Don't mind me. Just continue with what you need to do. Lin Chia nodded suspiciously and looked at the void in front of him, where a phantom wheel was floating in the air. Familiar abilities were scattered across it. Night Sky Descends, Eye of the Dark Night, Fallen Stars, Star Split Technique, Dark Night Flicker, Night's Chosen, Extraordinary Birth. After internally complaining about Extraordinary Birth once more, Lin Chia's gaze paused for a moment on a corner of the wheel, where there was a black area covering less than 1% of the total area, and the name of that ability was Unknown. Lin Chia had seen this unknown area twice before, but the previous two ability draws had been worlds apart from this unknown ability. This time he didn't pay it much mind. Taking a deep breath, Lin Chia adjusted his mindset and slowly spun the wheel. The pointer glided over each ability, and Lin Chia's heart rose with anticipation. The brief drawing time felt incredibly long to him. Finally, the pointer stopped at a certain ability area. Lin Chia's pupils suddenly constricted, nearly spitting out a mouthful of old blood. Extraordinary Birth.